Capitalism's only goal is ever-expanding growth, but ever-expanding growth on just the one not-expanding planet is impossible. The current economic system is disastrous, not just for the planet, but for most people too. 400 years of capitalism has allowed the richest 1% to take 40% for themselves, leaving just 1% for the poorest half. But anyone wanting to live differently is thwarted at every turn. With profit the only measuring stick, destroying the planet is written into the system, and runaway climate change is a not very surprising result.
I just can't get enough. 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 I just can't get enough.
The logo effectively is color. You know, like today, you know, Orange Telecom, they have orange and black. Our logo is fluorescent color. Everything changes in an economy the minute you have an airline moving in, because people can basically do business a lot faster. If businesses grow a lot faster, people have more disposable income, then, you know, consumerism sets in. And, you know, where the verge where basic consumerism is setting in, just moving a lot like America.
Yeah, I'm not happy living this kind of life, but at least at 23 I should be in better place. I always want our place to be like in America, in a comfortable house, flashy cars, drinking good water, eating good food. I always want our people to, at least my people, me, myself, to live that kind of life. It's a beautiful life. If you're living that kind of life, you won't even like to die. You just want to stay on earth forever.
Glide slope. Glide slope.
Here Jay travels to Airbus headquarters in France, as they'll be supplying him with 26 planes in his first 3 years.
We have only 200 aircraft commercially flying in India. China has 800. So ultimately, you know, we have a very long way to go. Playing catch up with China or catch up with Europe or, you know, say America, one airline, Southwest, have 417 aircraft. That's double the amount of aircraft we have as a country.
So this is not, of course, your final design choice, but...
You know, one simple sentence for me summarizes it all. Things can only get better.
My main house was, it had 10 feet of water, and it marinated in that sludge for, 3 weeks almost. So the current state of my house, it has been demolished. It's a flat piece of property waiting for another house to go on that.
I lost everything that I owned. I mean, everything from family heirlooms to the paper towels sitting on your kitchen counter, and everything in between. It goes on and on.
Two beautiful, beautiful oak trees I did not lose. Local indigenous Quercus virginianus live oaks, that sprawl all over the place. Beautiful, beautiful. That's what I have left. 2 oak trees and an empty lot. Everything else is gone. That sucks. Losing everything you have, it's so overwhelming. And the grief that comes with that is just, it's profound.
We had an unspoken collective pact to pretend climate change wasn't happening. as though as long as we ignored it hard enough, it wouldn't be true. Not absolutely everyone. A few were shouting, "Fire!"
One of the greatest difficulties with climate change is that the effects of our emissions today are not actually realised in terms of the temperature for 30 to 40 years, so there's this time lag in the system, which makes it difficult for us humans to respond, because we're evolutionarily equipped to deal with very immediate threats like advancing armies or dangerous animals. We're not so well equipped with dealing rationally with very long-term problems like climate change. So we have to act now to stop something happening in the future. If we wait until the full temperature effects are already upon us, then it's far too late to stop. If you remember one single number above all else, make it 2 degrees. Now, everyone in the world, pretty much, the European Union, big multinational corporations, Greenpeace, political parties, all agree that we have to stabilise global temperatures within 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels. And the reason for that is because if you cross that threshold, then there are tipping points in the Earth system which could drive the warming process essentially out of control. Huge amounts of carbon could be coming out of the world's trees and the soils, methane could be coming out of the permafrost in Siberia, and it's that extra input of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere which then leads us up the worst case scenarios to 6 or more degrees and the eventual wipeout of most of life on Earth. So our emissions have been going up between, let's say, 1950 and now. They need to level out, stabilise, and then decline just as rapidly to sustainable levels, about an 80% cut by 2050. But crucially, to keep the temperature rise within 2 degrees, this point of stabilisation needs to be at around 2015. So that means really the timeline we've got, ticking clock, is that we have to stabilise global emissions within just 7 years from now, as we speak, 2008. And the scale of this task to achieve a transformation to a low-carbon economy for the entirety of human civilization is obviously it's a huge, monumental task, probably the greatest that humanity's ever faced.
Remember the English family who went to see the glacier? They're back home in Cornwall, southwest England, inspired to start tackling their own energy wasting.
It says that the average individual in the UK is responsible for emitting 10 tonnes of greenhouse gas a year.
They're calculating exactly how much climate change gases their family currently produces and how it can be reduced.
Yeah, but that's the average individual. There are 5 of us here.
Ah. Ooh.
Whichever way you look at it, this isn't good.
We produce about half of our food, and we try and keep our consumption of meat and dairy down. My car runs on chip fat, and we do cycle when we can. We've just got our own wind turbine, which will produce all our own electricity.
We're aiming to cut down to about 1 tonne each per year, which is apparently the sustainable amount that the world's trees and plants can reabsorb.
But the big problem is flying. Just one return flight, say London to New York, would blow our entire carbon budget for about 3.5 years. Apparently, other than setting fire to a forest, flying is the single worst thing an ordinary individual can do to cause climate change. So it's a bit of a dilemma because we've just been invited to go skiing in France.
They're now flying from Newquay, which is our nearest airport, it's like 40 minutes from here, to Bergerac, which is like, you know, an hour and a half or something from it. And literally we could leave here in the morning. We live like in Cornwall. We could leave Cornwall in the morning and be in Bergerac by sort of for lunch, after lunch. But if you actually think this is going to cause the death of people, it's actually going to affect people and make that direct connection, then it is a really scary thought. Obviously, us not flying to France or not flying wherever is hardly going to solve the problem. But it's down to what you think is the correct thing to do. Because everyone else is doing it, and that's not a good reason to do anything. You know, you have to look at the terrible things in our history that everyone regrets now. You know, massacres, the Holocaust, etc. And you know, a lot of that was just going along with what was the predominant thinking at the time. I'm almost jealous of the time 5-10 years ago when I could just jump on a plane with impunity. I didn't